We also have junior site supervisors from past cohorts, so they support our site supervisors, so promoting that leadership role.
Yeah, I mean, this question of kind of how to work with alumni and keep them engaged really came up a lot as we were preparing for this, for these 2 days, because folks felt like, look, the first 6 months is really structured, and then how do we kind of maintain all of this? And so it sounds like you're creating leadership opportunities, very kind of structured opportunities, so that it's not just like a peak and then a drop off, right? Are other folks doing something like that? Yeah.
Just listening to her say that, that's a great idea.
What we did, we saw the needs of the site supervisors also. The site supervisors on the site the whole day. So basically, if they would, like, for instance, they needed to go and get supplies, who would they leave in charge? Anybody to watch the site while they're gone. So what we came up was with, we went to our past graduates in our last cohorts, and we usually give excellent, outstanding awards at the end of our graduation. So we stay in contact with everybody, but especially them because they built a good relationship with the site supervisors. And what we do, we call them back. We prep them for an interview, just like if they were getting a job. We train them. We give them OSHA training, and we train them while managerial stuff, not just learning how to paint or anything, but just how to supervise. So the last 2 cohorts, we had 2 junior site supervisors, and we had 2 different sets of young people. Well, during this period of time, we leave them with more responsibilities. They watch the young people. They help them with the timesheets. They help them also have an input on their projects that they do. They go out, they supervise them when they go out to community planning. So what we try to do is install leadership in them. So that's another thing they could use to fan up their resume. So they're not just graduate, but you also was part of being almost in a managerial, or not technically managerial position. So that gives them an opportunity, and also builds up their self-confidence. Like, I'm in charge of young people, and then they are forced to separate themselves, to cut that boundary off that you're no longer a participant. So that's also one of the obstacles that we had. They had to learn how to separate themselves from being a participant and being now in charge of the participants, which is something that they have to learn. Those are one of those life skills that they needed to get. And hopefully we continue. We did that as a pilot program with the first cohort, and we did the second cohort, and we're looking to do that more going forward. So,
does that sound like something other people want to try or want to do?
Absolutely.
Shaking. Yes.
When I taught at the state prison in Florida, our graduates, they can't go anywhere, right? So, but we wanted to continue services. So much in the same, we had when they would graduate, those high graduates who wanted to do something in education afterwards, we would make them teaching assistants. So I had been thinking before, and I've talked with Janelle actually,
interesting,
about having for an internship, have that as like you be a teaching assistant or a junior site supervisor, or something like that. That's something they can even put on their resume or a college application. Like, hey, I'm still involved in education even though I've graduated, or hey, I'm still working within the community. Even though it's not for community service points or anything like that. So I think that's a great.
Any of you who've tried that, what are some of the challenges of kind of creating those leadership opportunities? Because it really sounds wonderful, but having done it myself, I've made some serious mistakes with it. So what are some of the challenges that you guys have seen?
Well, he just mentioned one. Them keeping the balance between being a leader and also identifying with their peers who they live down the block from. That's definitely one of the biggest ones. And also holding on to higher standards. So now you're not staff, but you kind of are staff. And so we have to maintain the understanding and the compassion as we did when they were participants, but holding them to an even higher expectation. Like, okay, you being late once a week, maybe it was okay while you was a participant, but it's not acceptable now because now you're closer in line with a real job.
And learning boundaries also, because you're not a participant. You're held to a different standard. You know, and then for them to grasp that, because that might be the first time ever in their life that they have been in charge of it. And we have so much confidence and we think so well of you that we're giving you this opportunity. So that in itself installs confidence and walk up a little higher and do that. But it doesn't always come naturally. So not all managers are born managers. A lot of managers they had to be creative to do that. So least are not born leaders. Sometimes they have to be creative. And some of the obstacles were that time management, getting to work on time. Being thorough. Before you could leave it there, that's okay, you're a participant, but now you're in charge of that side. You understand? You're going to be held accountable. So accountability is a lot. It's not easy for us.
For staff, right?
For staff. So imagine for a young person, they're just getting, and not only that, but the peer pressure they're getting from the participants. Because if you look at them, they're basically roughly the same age. So basically, you're telling a person to do something that they don't want to do in the first place, for whatever reason. Yet you still have to do it because that's going to be your responsibility. Just dealing with that, dealing that with you're ostracized and being, like that pushback. It doesn't come naturally. It's not everybody likes to be loved, but when you're a manager, it's not easy. So they have to learn that, and we have to teach them that.
Right, and so one of the things that I'm really hearing you saying is just having high expectations on its own is not enough. Just being able to say to you, I really believe that you can do this. And sometimes we end there. It's like, I've given you this leadership opportunity. You're great. You can do this. Off you go. We do it together. Then you do it. So kind of the process of really building the skills beyond just having the belief. The belief on its own is really not enough, right? It's coupled with opportunities for learning.
Yeah, even though sometimes they complain about the little things, like it may be about the lunch, but you have to keep in mind also that some of them don't get a hot meal. That's right, at home. So when they come to the program or whatever, they look forward to that. So now that it's not being provided, they feel some sort of way.
Can I share with you a story? During the first 3 weeks of orientation, I paid for breakfast and lunch for all the young people, right? Then when they start getting paid in phase 2, I say to them, you're not going to get anything because you're getting paid, so you need to figure it out. The budget gets off the much of cars, the food and all of that. And I think after like 3 weeks into phase 2, the young people rallied up and they're like, we want to meet with the director. And Ms. Monique, they took their budget and they're like, this is how much you give me, this is what I do with MetroCards, this is what I do with this. They broke it down and they're like, and this is what I end up with, so what's good? And we compromised. And then I said every Friday for lunch during CVSP phase, I was going to treat them to lunch. And they were so excited about that. But it took them, but it's only once a week. So before it used to be 5 days a week that I would do it. And then they felt so good. So every Friday now we feed them, right? We give them, but they still have their money, but they had to advocate to me and they had to explain to me why. I said, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for budgets, right? So I had to explain to them that if I pull money from this, I said, you guys want a music studio or you want basketballs and whatever, it's going to have to wait until the next season. And they're like, okay, we'll let go of this. And I had to help them understand budget, financing and stuff. It was really cool. And they're fed, so everyone's happy.